And quite frankly, what do you have as Jalen Hurts as a quarterback is perhaps the most important question. And then that begs the question, are you really finding out what you have in Jalen Hurts with the offense that's being called right now? And I'm sure you guys have gone through this since Thursday night. At this point, I am out on Sirianni as an offensive coordinator. I can't stand to watch this offense continue to be so inept.
It's kind of an off Monday here on Birds 365. We're not exactly following an Eagle game. They played all the way back on Thursday against the Bucs. I know, by the way, they traded one of their best players, most popular players in the meantime and in between time. So it's kind of a different Monday for us here on Birds 365. But we are glad to bring Scott Grayson of Fox 29 into the mix, who's got his, is that a San Diego Padres old-time jersey you got on there, Scotty? The brown and the yellow?
No,
Arizona State.
Arizona State.
That's an Arizona State guy.
Zach, I don't know why I'm wearing it. They lost on Saturday, but
what happened? Herm couldn't finish the deal.
No, it's been a problem. Like Herm Edwards says, don't press send, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, does Herm have a computer yet to press send?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Scott's an Arizona State guy. So what that tells us, Scott, you were a big partier in your youth. That's what that tells us. That is the party.
College was a good time. College was a good time. I enjoyed myself out there for sure.
Scott, you and I have that in common. We both went to ASU. For you, it was Arizona State University. For me, it was Albany State University.
Okay.
I stayed in upstate New York, and despite the fact that we had to do a lot of our partying indoors during the winter, because it's right in the middle of the snow belt of upstate New York, it didn't keep us from partying either.
I'm sure. I mean, when you're that age, nothing keeps you from partying.
That's true. That is very true. All right, we've gotten off on a tangent quickly, as Jody and I typically do. But glad to have you, Scott. Host of Props and Locks on Fox 29 with our buddy Eitan Shander. We want to mention Eitan as well. But, Scott, a couple big things. I guess we'll start with Lane Johnson because it just happened this morning. Lane releases a statement dealing with some anxiety issues, depression, but he's returning to the Eagles. What does this mean to the team? It's pretty, when he's on the field, they do a lot better than when he's not on the field.
Well, I think everyone would agree they'd rather have Lane Johnson on that line than Andre Dillard. Not that Dillard has done badly in the time that he's been in there, but look, Lane's veteran experience, what he brings to that line is clearly a lot. And, we all were wondering what's going on here. What is the problem? What seems to be the issue? And they weren't saying anything about it. Now we know why. Obviously, he was dealing with a very personal issue, something that athletes are, starting to become more and more open about. Now, his return, I think now that it's out in the open, at least allows the team to move forward from that and perhaps maybe even get stronger through it. He's going to give that offensive line a shot in the arm, I got to believe. I would like to think he's going to come in and have a lot to prove when he does get back in there. And hopefully they just start doing some more things that they can and should do with that offensive line that they haven't, been doing yet. And I just think that his return is gonna certainly bring that offensive line room. I would imagine in film when the meeting room, those guys are going to be a little bit more fired up, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's just a good thing to know that whatever that uncertainty was that was going on, they can move forward from. But like you mentioned too, Jody, I mean, you get Lane Johnson back, you take Zach Ertz out of the locker room. There's definitely a lot of change in this since Thursday night that this team is going through.
And there may be even more change between now and the trade deadline. One of the things John and I spoke about in the first segment, the thing that annoys me is the attempted sale that this team is not in a transition phase. The owner said it way back when he gave Dougie P his walking papers that this was a transition year. Well, no better example than the trade they made last week. 2021 doesn't matter, doesn't count. They're looking ahead to future years. With that being the case, Andre Dillard going to get dealt in the next couple of weeks. Now that Lane Johnson's back, my lot is going back to the left side. John keeps telling me that this league is bereft of offensive line talent, and Andre Dillard put a couple of decent games, not great, decent games on film Eagles turn around and trade him, or does Howie have to continue to protect him because he was a first-round pick?
Yeah, well, that's frustrating, right? When the fans know that a first-round pick is not playing up to their potential, and then you see them thrown and continually thrust in there to prove that that pick was worthwhile. That's so frustrating for a fan base to watch that happen. And everybody knew Mailata had beat him out. He got the spot. And now the question is, what are the Eagles going to do? I think it worked out well for them that he was able to go out and put a couple of good. I mean, quite frankly, some good games on tape against some quality opponents. Perhaps his value is going to be as high as it can be right now. And that would be a good time to make a deal. There are some deals they've made that are looking pretty good. I mean, that draft pick that they're going to get from Miami just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to ask yourself, how many draft picks do you think you need? I mean, you got another one from Arizona now with the Zach Ertz trade. And you said 2021 doesn't matter. And I agree with you, Jody. I mean, they're clearly sending that message. But I would argue that it does matter in the standpoint of you've got to figure out what you have. What do you have in Nick Sirianni as a head coach? What do you have in Sirianni as an offensive coordinator? What do you have in Gannon as a defensive coordinator? And quite frankly, what do you have as Jalen Hurts as a quarterback is perhaps the most important question. And then that begs the question, are you really finding out what you have in Jalen Hurts with the offense that's being called right now? And I'm sure you guys have gone through this since Thursday night. At this point, I am out on Sirianni as an offensive coordinator. I can't stand to watch this offense continue to be so inept. We ran something last night on Sports Sunday. Jalen Hurts has accounted for 40% of this team's running plays. 40% out of your quarterback. What are you – I mean, you're putting way too much in this guy's hands, and opposing defenses know exactly what's coming. There's no creativity, no opportunity to try and build something from one play to a next. I see no scripted material at the beginning of the game. I mean, we all know Andy Reid, that was one of his strengths. You could at least get out of the gate usually with your first 15 plays. I see nothing from this team right now to show me that you can even truly evaluate Jalen Hurts through 5 games.
All right, but Scott, it's interesting you went that direction because that's the way I was going to take you because of what you were saying. What do we have in Jalen Hurts? What do we have in Nick Sirianni? This seems to have bubbled up last week for some reason. People have said, I'm done. They've slammed the podium like Nick Sirianni does. I'm done with Nick Sirianni as a play caller, as an offensive coordinator. He's terrible. He's putting too much on the plate of a young quarterback. That's the chicken. The egg is, or is he trying to protect a young quarterback? Because I think, I see your face, but let me finish. I think if you look at the numbers, and you brought up one of them, 40% of the running plays, I think 87% of the Eagles' offense has been Jalen Hurts. Right in the middle of that, you have his pass attempts. I'm going to give you this number, guys. 3% of Jalen Hurts' pass attempts, 6 of 208 have come between the hashes. 6. Where do you get interceptions in this league? You throw in the middle of the field, you're inaccurate, tip ball, boom, up, safety gets it, ball's going the other direction. From my perspective, and I said this to Jody, and I'll throw it out to you, Scott, I think he's trying to protect Jalen Hurts too much. I think that's the problem.
You lay out a very good point. I would counter with, up until Thursday, you had arguably the best 1-2 punch at tight end in the league, and your tight ends are going to be most valuable over the middle. You could argue, there've been a couple of games where they've used the tight ends well, but I would argue they haven't used them well enough. I would argue too that you've got to run the ball with your running backs to try to set up some things to set up your quarterback to be more successful, make things a little easier on him. You lay out an argument that they could be protecting him, but if 2021 doesn't matter, like Jody said, and I think we can agree that this team's not going deep into the playoffs if they were even to contend all of a sudden for the division, which isn't happening right now. don't you need to make things? Don't you need to see? Don't you need to run your offense?
Well,
whatever
that
this
part I've
offense
agreed
is?
with, Scott. I've agreed with it. I said throw him in the deep end of the pool.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to like the answer, but at least you'll have the answer.
What you need, and isn't that like when the season began? I don't think anybody was sitting here going, "Hey, Super Bowl or bust." It was, what do we have in Sirianni? What do we have in Ertz? Were the two biggest questions. So don't you, like you said, throw him in the deep end of the pool? Don't you need to see, can he sink or swim? So that with these 3 first-round picks, which continually seem to get better and better, you can do anything with that. You can fix that problem. If you think he's good enough, you can address and get a whole lot younger on defense, which is another thing they need to do. But if you don't know, if you scratch your head at the end of the season going, what do we really have in Ertz? Right now he's better than Daniel Jones. Not that that says much. He's better than some quarterbacks in the league because as much as they may have been trying to protect him, his numbers are not terrible in the sense that he's had to make some throws. Now, he has not made good throws. He's missed targets. There's certainly ways we can whack, his ability at certain times. But I also believe that they're not running they're predictable on offense. They're making so you could be protecting him, but quite frankly, I think you're making his life harder. Look at those screen passes they ran Thursday night. The Bucs knew exactly what was coming. The moment that he turned to throw it out to the flat, that defensive back was already in full pursuit and dropping them right away. This offense is killing me, and I think it's killing Ertz in that regard as well.
And here's one of the realities that Howie Roseman, Eagle fans, everybody else is going to have to start to deal with here pretty soon. If you don't think Jalen Hurts is the answer, which he's not putting a lot of things out there for you to have confidence into, for you to latch yourself upon, where do the Eagles go from there? We've still got no idea if Deshaun Watson's ever going to play football again. He may play first game next year, may get this all behind him, may work it out, or he may be dragged through the court system for years. And who knows what he comes back as when he does return to football. I'll tell you right now, the NFL draft, quarterback position, not a strong suit this year. So the Eagles can have all those draft picks and draft capital and the ability to move up. Move up for who? Who's the guy who's going to be this is going to set the franchise right for the next decade? I don't know that he exists in this year's NFL college football draft.
I completely agree with you. Every Saturday that I watch some college football games, there's not that Trevor Lawrence that jumps out to you as a clear number one. There's nobody there at that level. And I'm out on trying to go the route of say, hey, okay, get an Aaron Rodgers or try to get a Russell Wilson. You need to get younger, and the rest of your team is young. This is an opportunity to really build from not the ground up, but somewhere not too far away from that with some young talent that you've got, in certain positions on offense. And like I said, you can get a little younger on defense. And then if you can get that guy, whoever he is, that's got a lot of fuel in the tank, not somebody near the end of his career that's looking to win right now, because quite frankly, I just don't know. The way Dallas is playing, the way that they've built their team, you look at Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons, that defense now has a core that's going to be really annoying to deal with twice a year for the next decade. And quite frankly, the Eagles don't have something like that. And, I agree with you. Where do you go? That is the problem right now. If you say he's not the guy, then where do you go? What do you do? Do you try to parlay some of those first-round picks into a first-round pick in 22 somehow? Do you trade forward and try to fix some other holes because there's enough of them, and maybe hope that class produces something better? I don't know. I agree with you, Jody. There's no good answer, and I don't know that I want to go the Deshaun Watson route right now. Look how quickly he's been forgotten around the league at this point.
Oh, he'll come forefront of mind very quickly when
might be in Miami,
realizing how bad this draft class is. Oh, the Texans are going to do just fine moving Deshaun Watson. Mark my words.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the moment he gets back on the field with whatever suspension, if one comes, we know his talent. We know what he can do. And he does fit the mold of, like I was talking about, being young enough, have enough fuel in the tank that he would give you what you need. And we know that these guys, Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie like what Deshaun Watson can bring to the table on the football field. The question is whether or not they're going to be willing to deal with whatever happens as a result of his off the field issues at this point to get there. But he is probably right now the best option out of everything. I agree. I don't think there's an option right now that you could point to and say definitively is a solid potential franchise quarterback in college.
And we always have to add Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play here until he changes his mind and puts the Eagles in a mix. It doesn't even matter. It's more likely Miami than anything else. But all right, let's talk about the coach, Scott, because I got a lot of this last night. Kellen Moore is the greatest play caller in the history of mankind, evidently. The Cowboys have scored 35 points, I think, 7 straight games, is it? The Eagles, people forget, interviewed Kellen Moore to be the head coach of this team before they landed on Nick Sirianni. Now, I want to point out, I think it's fair, that Kellen Moore has Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper and CD Lamb. Michael Gallup's hurt, but Cedric Wilson's pretty good. Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, a great offensive line, on and on and on. Nick Sirianni's got a quarterback who started 10 games, Jalen Reagor, who still looks like not good. Let's be kind. You can't say anything nice. Don't say anything negative. His best playmaker is a rookie wide receiver. And by the way, I have this on good accord that when Nick Sirianni looks down at his play card, the biggest part of his play card is Devontae Smith. Bill Walsh couldn't look like a good play caller with this team. Is that fair to say?
I think that is fair to say. I don't know. My biggest problem continues to be, if I'm Miles Sanders, I'm doing one of two things after every game. I'm either laughing when I go to the bank because I don't have to do much to cash that check, or I'm frustrated because I know what my ability is. My team continues to lose, and I want to continue. I want my chance to be a part of bringing a win to this team, and that's probably the latter, knowing the competitor that Miles Sanders is. But there's no doubt he's way underused, and I think, quite frankly, if when you talk about their offense, you have a potential 1-2 punch in him and Kenny Gainwell that I think could work decently if they would let it, and they just don't. They don't try to go there, and I was going back through some old transcripts from Sirianni from back in when he was first hired, then through the spring. There was a talk about, running the ball. And you watch Indianapolis yesterday. Look at what Jonathan Taylor did. What happened? Is there just that lack of faith in this running game? Is there that lack of faith in Sanders or Gainwell? I mean, pick one. I don't care who. Make them a feature back. Is there a lack of faith in the offensive line? It's easier for an offensive line.
Keep going, Scott.
Yeah, it's easier for an offensive line to run block, isn't it? I mean, most offensive linemen will tell you that. They just have to shoot off the ball, take care of their guy for a second, and the running back is by them, and the play, it's going. Why are they not? I mean, and this is my question for Sirianni that I would love to ask him, but why are you not making it easier on your offense to succeed? But, I mean, first down is a failure so many times. It's hard to get a first down if you can't even move the ball on first down. And then the penalties come into mind. And then that goes at the head coach himself. And quite frankly, I think, when you have a bad game with penalties, if it's random and it's a total freak thing, that's on the players for not being disciplined in that moment, on them, mentally, whatever it was that was leading to it. When it happens week after week after week, to me, that's a coaching staff problem. That's not being addressed in practice. It's not being handled properly. There's no fear of committing that penalty again. I would have made Derek Barnett inactive for one game after some of the stuff he was pulling earlier this season, just to send him a message that I can't afford to put you even in uniform because you could hurt us. And there's just none of that. I mean, he wants to play rock, paper, scissors with everybody. That's great. It sounds good in the offseason. But when you're in the heart of battle here and you're in the heat of trying to win games, quite frankly, I wonder how close he's going to start to come to losing this locker room if this losing continues.
Scott, here's one that John and I have disagreed on at times. The whole RPO aspect of the Eagles offense. John says it actually makes the offense easier for the quarterback because all he does is read one guy and makes a decision off it. But here's my point. He has to make that decision. If you don't have an RPO incorporated into your offense, either you drop back and throw the ball or you drop back and you hand off the ball. You don't have to make a decision. The play is called for you. You're either going to throw it or you're going to hand it off. With an RPO, that's an extra added decision the quarterback has to make. Supposedly it's very easy, but it's just more of something is not necessarily good as far as I'm concerned. I'm not even saying wipe it out, that there's no more RPO. Can they just do less? Can every once in a while they have a basic play fake where the quarterback fakes the ball and he knows ahead of time he's going to keep it and try and throw it rather than have to decide, do I hand it or do I keep it? No, pre-write it, predetermine it for him and let him go from there. That is bothering me about the Eagles offense right now. It's not even play calling. It's the fact they have this implementation that the quarterback's got to make a decision on all the time. I think it's got to be reduced starting now.
I agree with both you guys, and here's why. First of all, play action is not illegal. Nick needs to know that. Number two, you have to run the ball for it to be effective with your running backs. But to get to your point, Jody, I agree with both you guys in the sense that the RPO is easier on the quarterback, but if what you're running is either RPO or quick screen pass outside, the defense can stop both at the same time because you are reading that one guy and they can take their linebackers and their defensive line and structure it so that they can stop the RPO while their defensive backs are able to handle that outside passing game. So, and this is what I saw a lot in the first half on Thursday night. If you're running either one or the other, you can defend both at the same time, and that's what Tampa was doing. You talk about doing some good scouting and knowing what was coming. And the players were trying really hard not to say after the game that they felt like Tampa knew it was coming. But if you read between the lines, I felt like I was hearing that from some of those players.
No, Jordan Mailata came right out and said that.
Jordan
It seemed like they knew it was coming.
Yeah. And as soon as he said it, I was like, "Ooh, he's going to get a special conversation after the game, or later that week with his coaching staff." But it looked that way, right? And so the RPO is designed to be easy. Look, Nick Foles ran it with success. It should with a guy with Ertz speed and ability, it should be able to be a successful play. All you need is 3 yards to at least break even on a play. And you do that 3 times in a row, and you're pretty close to getting a first down, right? It's simple math. But this team can't even do that. And I think it's because they're too predictable with their outside game, with the RPOs. They run too many of them, quite frankly. So, Jody, that's where I agree with you. Like, yes, not blow it up and take it out of the playbook, but use it less. It will be more effective if it's not expected on every possession or even every set of downs. Some other stats that kill me on this offense. This team is almost last in the league in time of possession. You are now putting that defense out on the field for that other remaining time of the game. They're naturally going to wear down. This team is awful on third down. They're one of the worst in that category as well. They've run almost the most third downs in the league. So not only are they not getting first downs, but they can't even get them before third down and fourth down. And there's just so many issues here. And then you get into the issue, and this is my biggest thing that I'm looking for this weekend from both Sirianni and Gannon, talking about next weekend against Vegas. Did you really do some self-scouting? What did you learn? Because if you learned anything, we should be able to see it pretty quickly in the way that you're calling the game on both sides. Why are these corners playing 8 yards off? You have weak linebackers, and you're not doing anything to help set them up for success. Just everything in general on that side of the ball, too, is frustrating because you just see teams move down the field and down the field and down the field. And if they could get a few stops, the offense has put up enough points in the past to win some of these games, and it just hasn't happened. So the whole thing, I need to see that they self-scouted themselves, that these young coaches learned something about themselves, because you heard the lip service on Friday from Sirianni. Oh, yeah, we're going to self-scout. We look at ourselves all the time. I don't need to stop play calling. I think it's going well. That's my expertise. Really? Because if it's your expertise, I should see some expert calls coming forward here, especially against some weaker teams that they have coming up, as you guys all know, in the next few weeks.
Well, Scott, I want to point the finger at the top floor of the NovaCare complex. I mean, does this really surprise people? Rookie head coach struggling, rookie defensive coordinator struggling, no experience, no veteran voice on this coaching staff that has been through it before. They have trouble with their messaging. Jonathan Gannon saying no scheme, gets killed for that. It's got to come back. I didn't mean that. Nick Sirianni's got to talk about simplified offenses versus RPOs. Everybody's saying, guess what? I can tell you what everybody, forget about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I can tell you what every college in this country is going to run on Saturday. A bunch of RPOs and bubble screens. Everybody knows what's coming. So you have an RPO offense with a cover 2 defense, and you lose the time of possession game. Like, is this surprising to anyone? Why isn't it surprising to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman?
Well, I've wondered about that in the sense that, look, how involved are they in structuring the play calling here? Because, like I said, when you go back and listen to Sirianni when he was hired, he talked about a running game. He talked about, some.
Well, Jeff, real quick, Jeff doesn't want a running game, so throw that out the window.
So how much are they getting, and he's a new head coach. He's easily manipulated, right? Because he wants to please the boss. He wants to try to have a career as a head coach in this league. Well, you need to keep your job in order to continue to potentially play it forward and get another one at some point. But how handcuffed is Sirianni? None of us know the answer to that. But you have to believe there is some of that going on, which is a problem in and of itself. And you talked about, John, one big issue that you look at. You won a Super Bowl not that long ago. You had some sort of a recipe in place that you could try to follow to cook that up again. That included a new head coach, a rookie kind of head coach with a veteran voice. Jim Schwartz was that guy. He had head coaching experience before. He was able to be some sort of a help for Peterson, particularly early on with some of that stuff. I thought for sure they were going to follow that mold again with this coach. And it went totally the opposite direction. So, there's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Well, you had a good result with something you did in the past, and you didn't do it again. So what are you doing? It seems more and more that this owner is way too involved in the day-to-day stuff. There's this Miles Sanders on his radio show earlier this past week talked about how when he went out of bounds, remember in the Carolina game, that the owner came to him after, Lurie had saw him after the game and said, good job, but hey, don't go out of bounds anymore. That's not the owner's role. You can't just, his job should be, hey, good job, way to get the win. You have an issue with that. It should go through the coaching staff, really through Howie down to the coaches to, there's a problem here. And then you play it forward. These players all talk, right? What's it like to play there? What's it like to play for those fans? Well, what's it like to play for that owner? And is that going to be a problem when you start talking about free agents down the road? How much does that play into things? Why does Deshaun Watson not want to come here? Is stuff like that part of it? It really begs a lot more questions up there. And at some point, you got to stop putting the earplugs in if you're Jeffrey and listen a little bit, because not everybody around here is totally stupid. This fan base, these people, us in the media, I'm not saying we're brilliant, but we tend to have good ideas every now and then. Be open-minded, listen, use it to your advantage, try to make things better. And you just don't see any of that happening in that front office.
Scott, I want to follow up on something you just said. First and foremost, even though I get your point that you don't really want the owner commenting to players about plays on the field, not his job, Well, he's the owner. His job is whatever he says it is. And oh, by the way, Miles going out of bounds was so egregious. I don't have a problem with Laurie pointing it out to him.
Totally agree.
But about Sirianni and his relationship with the players, we had a NFL head coach yesterday completely throw his quarterback under the bus. Dan Campbell of the Lions said, yeah, Jared Goff's actually got to kind of step up at this point. Really? Your team stinks. He's got no wide receivers whatsoever. You're going to put it on the quarterback, coach? Why, because he didn't bite somebody's kneecap? But I digress about Dan Campbell. Not a big fan. But I'm telling you, he's going to lose the locker room. That's a foregone conclusion. He just took his quarterback and threw him under the bus after 6 games. Sirianni hasn't done that. Sirianni has played it well. Sirianni has taken his players' backs. Can we look at that as one plus? That at least he seems to have the guys in the locker room behind him. We can question his play calling. I'm questioning the heck out of RPO is the only way to win in the NFL. But at least it seems like the guys still have his back because he still has their back in the locker room. Is that fair to say?
At this point, yes, I think it is fair to say, and that's why I said I'm out at this point on Nick Sirianni, the play caller or the offensive coordinator. I'm not out yet on Nick Sirianni, the head coach. I think you truly need to let an entire season, and in fairness, probably even more than that, play out with a guy who's doing it for the first time. You're right; he has their backs. What I'm getting frustrated with, I think, is that he's not pointing the finger at himself at this point. And I think a little bit of that could go a long way in terms of the locker room. He's not going to lose the young players. Those guys are still learning what the NFL is about. It's the guys like the Fletcher Coxes, the Jason Kelce's. I would have said Zach Ertz, but now he's gone. Those kind of players that a Rodney McLeod, even a Darius Slay, like those guys are the guys you want to make sure you keep. With your messaging. And at this point, from what we've heard, from what we've gotten, it seems like that's still intact. But that's where I say, when you look at it, these guys are smart enough to know, look, we just faced the Super Bowl champs in the Bucs. That Dallas team, that night, clearly the Eagles weren't ready to play. I don't know what would have mattered the way Dallas is playing right now. So you look at some of these games and you say, okay, well, they probably weren't going to win them anyway. But it's these next ones. That's why I say this is a key stretch. You're talking about, Vegas is potentially beatable because you don't know what's going on out there. They did have a good game yesterday. They bounced back. How much of that was emotional for what they went through? Who knows? They're beatable. The Lions, as you just documented, I mean, if they lose that game, which scares me because it's on Halloween, but if they lose that game, that's the one where you could really see that locker room implode, especially if they lost in Vegas and lose that one. Now you're 2-6. I think this is an important stretch coming up in terms of that aspect about whether this, because as we all know, that there's a lot of winnable games on the back half of this schedule. They could finish this thing respectable for sure. And you never know if Dallas somehow trips and falls and gets major injuries, or Dak was in a walking boot last night. I mean, there's a lot of season left to play. But you don't want to lose that locker room. I think it's important for him as a head coach if he's going to build anything moving forward. And like I said, players talk, right? They all talk. They have friends on other teams. And at some point, some of them are going to be free agents. When they say, hey, what's that coach like to play for? You want to hear, oh, he's got our backs. He defends us to the media. He will not throw you under the bus, whatever. Those are important qualities. But that's why I say these next few games are going to be huge for whether or not he loses this locker room. Because if there's no changes, if there's no modifications, if there was no in effect, modifications to what they've been doing from self-scouting with these extra few days, that's where you start to see some veterans going, what's going on around here? And John, we don't get you don't get to get up close with these guys like you used to in the locker room right after a game. And I felt those were valuable interactions, just what you observe, the body language you see as you're talking to these guys, not via Zoom like we are or that kind of thing right now. It's very valuable with I think evaluating human beings, and that's a key aspect you're just not getting right now.
And speaking of the old days, and by the way, everybody watch Scott Props and Locks Box 29 Sports Sunday Box 29, so you can see him every week. Last one for me, Minneapolis, you were there with me. Zach Ertz, 4th and 1, split out wide, essentially game-winning touchdown. What did he mean to the Philadelphia Eagles, this organization?
I that was a tough trade, right? I think a lot of people have had a tough time. You knew that it was coming. You knew that it was going to happen just from the way it all back to when he was yelling at Howie last year. Zach Ertz, to me, one of my favorite players, I think, of all time around here. Just the way he carried himself. This guy played through a lacerated kidney.
Yeah,
if that's not Philadelphia, I don't know what is. He left everything on the field in Minneapolis, as you talked about, John. Every time you went to talk to him after a game, you got real. You got real in the moment, emotion, thought, not, coach speak or wordplay on saying the right things, being politically correct. You got what Zach was thinking in those moments, good or bad, after good games, after bad games, whatever it was. Obviously in the media, I appreciate that the most out of players when they're real with you, because we're essentially, I feel, the middleman between the players and the fans. So when you say that to us, you're talking to the fans, and you're being real with the fans, and that's all they want. I thought his press conference after his trade was spot on. It was Zach Ertz to a T. It was the guy, like I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old son who both play baseball at a pretty high level and are very competitive. And Zach did an autograph signing down here one night at a Verizon. I took them down there. I wanted them to meet him, get their picture with him. And I said to them when he was traded, I was like, this guy is one of the few role models right now as far as athletes that I would consider. Carries himself the right way. It meant something to him to be here. And he's the kind of guy who I totally feel like is going to come back to Philadelphia, live here for the rest of his life, not have to pay for a drink ever again, hopefully, around here whenever he's done. And quite frankly, I'm happy for him that he's getting the opportunity to go to a team that has a chance to win a Super Bowl this year. To me, he has played this game well. You think about when he's been criticized. When he said, it meant something to be criticized, I liked that. It drove me. You go through and you hear all the time, oh, when you're in high school, you're so good. You're going to be great. You're going to be great. You know what? These guys and these young athletes, they do need to be told, you are good, but you could be better. And when the fans get on you and boo you because you didn't block, you remember early in Zach's career, the one play?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He didn't block.
He remembers it.
Of course. But look at what it did for him. He took it the right way. And I think, it's a shame he's gone. I loved talking to Zach after every game. He was one of the last guys to leave the locker room. You know this, John. And he would stand there and talk to you for a long time, quite frankly, until I think the rest of the media relations staff wanted to go home. It was like, all right, guys, that's it. And, so I'll miss that about him for sure. And, wish him nothing but the best.
And, oh, by the way, he did leave the door open for a potential return to get those 12 more catches he needs to get to catch Harold Carmichael as the all-time leading Eagle receiver. Just something I think Eagle fans can finally think of for the future, because we don't know when the Eagles are actually going to be competing again. Howie Roseman says right now, despite the trade, I need to see it with my own two eyes. Scotty, great stuff. Appreciate you coming on board. Good luck to ASU the rest of the year. Herm's one of my favorite coaches of all time. So, yes, even though I didn't go there, I went to a different ASU. I'm pulling for you, buddy. Thanks for jumping on with us today.
I always appreciate chatting with you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott Grayson, Fox 29, did a good job for us. Strong opinions, and maybe because I agreed with most of his opinions, sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Rack and Mac guys. We still got an hour to play here on Birds 365. Stick around.